8-3 Geometric sequences in series. Alright, well, the first thing we're going to look at is how can we tell if a sequence is geometric? We're going to look for a common ratio. We're going to start with number 4 on your worksheet. Alright, the sequence starts with 3 halves, 3 over 2, and then we have negative 3 fourths, then we have positive 3 16th, negative 3 over 32, and as you can tell from this sequence, we are looking for a common ratio. What did you multiply from here to here or from here to here? It has to be the same common ratio. As you can tell, this common ratio, which we're going to call R, is going to be negative 1/2. And so as long as we have a common ratio, we call this sequence geometric. I do want you to look at number 2 though. And if you look at number 2, you have a sequence that goes from 45 to 40 to 35 to 30 and so on. As you can tell, this particular sequence, you're subtracting 5, which we call this a common difference, not a common ratio, and therefore this particular sequence is arithmetic and not geometric. So number 4 was geometric, number 2 was arithmetic. Next, we're going to do writing a rule for a geometric sequence. So to write a geometric rule, we have a formula that I need you to remember. It's an equal a1 times r to the negative 1. Every single time you're asked to find a rule, and so this is what you need to do. You have to look for a1, you have to look for r, and plug them into the formula. Let's take a look for an example here. Example number 7. For example number 7, you're given this particular sequence: 1, 5 over 2, 25 over 4, 125 over 8, and so on. Well, we need to look for two things. We need to look for a1, we need to look for r. The first term is a1, which is 1. R is the common ratio, and the common ratio here, as you can tell, we're multiplying by 5 over 2. So now when we write the rule is going to be an equal 1, which is a1, times the common ratio raised to the n minus 1. The 1 is not necessary here, but putting it in there is no big deal. We're going to write the rule again for number 8 on your worksheet. And the sequence is negative 2.4, negative 16.8, negative 117.6, and negative 823.2. We have this particular sequence. We're asked to write a rule. In order for us to write the rule, we need the first term, we need the common ratio. As you can tell here, the first term is negative 2.4. The common ratio is what are you multiplying to go from one term to the next. And if you look at the common ratio here, it's going to be 7. So the rule is going to be an equal negative 2.4 times 7. I need 7 in the parentheses to the n minus 1. Writing a rule for number 9. Well, to write the rule for number 9, we're not given a1. So we have to look for a1. However, they give you the eighth term, which is 384. They give you the common ratio, which is 2. Now, how are we going to use this 8th term to find a1? If I know a1, I could write the rule. So here what we're going to do. We're going to go to this formula, a8 equal a1 times r raised to a power. The number of terms that go from the first term to the 8th term is 8 minus 1. And so the 8th term is given to us to be 384. a1 is what we're looking for. R is 2. 8 minus 1 is 7th. So this will give us 384 equal a1 times 2 to the 7th, which is 128. And if you divide both sides by 128, you will find that a1 is equal to 3. Alright, well now we have a1. Can we write the rule if we have a1 and r, the common ratio? So the rule will be an equal 3. Put the 2 in parentheses, raised to the n minus 1. Next, what they're asking you, okay, now that you have the term, can you go ahead and figure out what would be the 6th term in that sequence? To find the 6th term, we're going to do 3 times 2 raised to the 6 minus 1. And that will give you, use your calculator, make sure you know what you're doing, and this will give us negative 40,366.80. Next, we're going to look at number 11. Again, we're asked to write a geometric rule. This time, they gave us the second term, which is a2 is equal negative 2. They give us the fifth term, which is 2 over 125. Well, I don't need neither one of them. In order for me to write the rule, I need a1 and I need the common ratio. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go on the side of our paper and see how we're going to use what we're given to find a1 and r. Well, this is what I need you to do. I need you to start with the geometric formula. a2 equal a1 time r raised to the power, how many term goes from 1 to 2? It's going to be 2 minus 1. If you look at this one after you simplify it, it's going to give you negative 2 time equal a1 time r. If we use the second term, which is a5 equal to a1 time r raised to a power, how many terms took you from the first term to the fifth term? It's 5 minus 1. a5 is given to you 2 over 125. a1 is what I'm looking for, and that will be r raised to the 5 minus 1, which is 4. Now here what I want you to do. I want you to take those two equations, two unknown, and solve for a1 and r. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and divide the two equations. So this is what I want you to do. Take negative 2 divided by 2 over 125. And on the other side, we're going to take a1 time r and divide it by a1 time r raised to the fourth. So I took the first equation divided it by the second. On the left-hand side, negative 2 over 1 multiplied by the reciprocal, which is 125 over 2. And on the right side, I'm going to cancel a1. It gives us 1 over r cubed. We're going to continue with this work until we solve for r. Now we have, when we simplify the 2, negative 125 over 1 equal 1 over r cubed. I need you to cross multiply. And if we cross multiply, we have negative 125 r cubed is equal to 1. Solve for r cubed. R cubed is going to equal negative 1 over 125. And if you cube root both sides, r is equal to negative 1/5. Alright, we found r. We're still looking for a1. Now we're going to look back over here and say, well, a1 was, let's look at this formula right over here. Can we do this one here? We know already r. Can we find a1? Negative 2 is equal to a1 time r. And so here what we're going to do, we already found r to be negative 1/5. And so this will be a1 time negative 1/5. If we multiply both sides of this equation by negative 5, you will know negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Negative 5 times all of these is going to give you a1. We have a1, we have r. Can we go ahead and write the rule? And finally, the rule is going to be an equal 10 times negative 1/5 raised to the n minus 1. We're moving on to number 12. Number 12, they're asking us to find the sum of all the term if we go from the 0 to the 10th, and the formula here is going to be 3 times 3 over 2 to the I minus 1. Well, in order for us, we know this is geometric. In order for us to do this one, we need to figure out what the formula is. So the formula for the sum is going to be S is of n, you're adding the n term. It's going to be a1 times 1 minus r raised to the nth power over 1 minus r. Now, in order for us to go to this formula, I need you to go to this side of your paper and find the following. You need to figure out what n is, you need to figure out what r is, you need to figure out what a1 is, and then we'll come back to the formula, plug them in. N is the number of term. And if you're going from 0, plugging in 0 to get the first term, plug in 1 to get the second term. If we're going from 0 to 10, you're going to end up with 11 term. If you're finding r is the base. The base is always going to be 3 over 2. To find a1, we're going to plug in I equal to 0 into this formula. And that will give us 3 times 3 over 2 to the 0 minus 1, which gives you, let me move this up a little, which gives you 3 times 3 halves raised to the negative 1. And so that will be 3 times 2/3. Cancel the 3's, and as you can see, a1 is 2. Now that you have n, you have r, and you have a1, let's go ahead and plug them into the formula. So this formula is going to be, the sum of all these terms is going to be 2 times 1 minus 3 halves raised to the 11th power over 1 minus 3 halves. Well, I'm going to walk you through this process, how to do the calculation. And so the calculation is going to work something like this. I want you to start in the denominator. 1 minus 3 halves is going to give us 2 over 2 minus 3 over 2, which gives us negative 1 half. I want you to take this negative 1 half and take 2 divided by negative 1 half. All of this here reduced to negative 1 half. I want you to look on this side. What's 2 divided by negative 1 half? That's going to be negative 4. In the parentheses in the numerator, it's still given to you as 1 minus 3 to the 11th over 2 to the 11th. So now we're going to pull out our calculator and calculate this. This is going to give us negative 4. 1 minus 3 to the 11th is 177,147. 2 to the 11 is 2048. We're going to do within the bracket, we're going to do a common denominator. And the common denominator is going to be 2048 over 2048, which is 1, minus 147 over 2048. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to subtract the numerator. 2048 minus 177, because we already have a common denominator, is going to give us negative 175,099. Now, we're going to multiply across, and you know, when you multiply across, we can reduce. The 4 and 2048 reduces. And so that's going to give us, in the denominator, 512. In the numerator is going to be a negative times a negative, which is positive 175,099. And this one cannot be reduced. You can leave it right here.